blessed unity with the L-O-V-E. Love is the solution, so set your love free with the L-O-V-E. Further evolution and blessed unity.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Self-Love Show. We love our self-lovers. Woo! Hands up if you're a self-lover. Woo! Yes. Welcome back to the show. I'm your co-host, Dawn Light. This is Trish Wright, my other beautiful co-host. We're so blessed. We've done this show close to we're coming up on our 4th year, and it's such a gift. And we're so grateful for it. And we're so grateful for you, our viewers, tuning in. And we have an amazing guest today. I'm going to read her bio in 1 minute. But in case you don't know, I say this all the time, but it's just to let you know of the resources available to you. Go check out the YouTube channel. Go check out the podcast platforms. We're everywhere. And please like, share, and subscribe. It makes a world of difference to get the message of self-love out to everyone seeking greater understanding of how to work with their material, their curriculum, deepen their relationships, and most importantly, strengthen their relationship with God, source, light, whatever you want to call all it is. And that's the mission. We're on a mission to spread that love. And so without further ado, we have a great guest today. She is such a gem. We made friends instantly behind the scenes, and I can't wait to dive into deeper conversation with her, but we're about to do that on the show. So, how to use self-love as a fuel for change with Khanyisa. We often try to change our lives from a place of deep self-loathing and self-punishment. Not only that, but a lot of us also heavily rely on motivation as a fuel for transformation. These are not sustainable and usually keep us in a loop of self-hate and stuck in our comfort zones or places of familiarity. During this week's episode of the Self-Love Show, she will be teaching us how on the power of leaning on self-love when trying to make big life changes. Self-love is the most sustainable foundation for any life transformation. Khanyisa is a certified self-love coach, speaker, and author with a BA in psychology and a certification in counseling. Khanyisa works with women who feel stuck in their lives and empowers them to live as their most confident, empowered, and authentic selves. Khanyisa experienced the transformative power of self-love and authenticity in her own life. Growing up queer and closeted in a conservative community in South Africa, she learned how to embrace her authenticity and unlearn harmful narratives about who she is and how she navigates the world. It is her life's mission to help others do the same. She lives in Austin, Texas, and loves to travel, explore different cultures and foods, and she loves to spend her Saturdays biking around the city of Austin. That's awesome. I love Austin. Welcome.
Thank you. I love that bio.
Yeah. I love that bio too. I'm curious about, so I have this curiosity around some of your journey of self-love. Because what I find in my practice, and I don't know if anybody else agrees in their practice, is that the places where I've struggled the most in my own self-love is the people that I attract as clients. So like why people come to you. And this is for you too, Dawn, is like why when they're struggling with their self-love, what is the journey that you've both taken get to those things? Because I'm certain that they're showing up in the same way, right? Or is it just me?
No, I don't think it's just you. I don't think it's just you at all. I think someone recently told me that we teach what we need to learn a lot of the times. And I've been feeling that in my work most recently too, because with self-love, I grew up very, very, very religious. And not only that, my grandparents were very traditional. And so the dogma was not around, oh, love yourself. It was love God, love others, you're going to go to hell. Everything was around that narrative of you're going to get punished, you're going to die. And so the clients that I attract are people who are, sorry, my cat, who are unlearning. who are on a similar journey to what I was too, where it was, I know that I'm not who I want to be in this moment, and I have this idea of who I want to be, but there's this in between space between these two people, and how do I get there? And that for me is the journey of going, well, this is what I did to get there. And sometimes, to be honest, I mean, we're all coaches here. It's not all great for any of us. We're on this human journey as well, but we've taken steps to kind of get close to whatever that calling is, or whatever that person we want to be is. So yeah, I feel like a lot of the clients that I work with resonate with my story. And then within that story, they see themselves. And me as a coach, it is, I'm going to teach you as best as I can, but my gratitude for the work is how much I learn in it too.
Yes.
Absolutely beautiful.
Mm.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I was just gonna say, you know, the piece around, you know, self-punishment and religion is so, the narrative is so thick and so strong in many cultures, not just one or two. You know, I also was raised in a very, my mother is very, very by the Bible, like a literalist. And so I was also raised in a very like, God is punishing, and there's this punishing narrative. And I've had to do a lot of house cleaning, spiritual ecology work, like, you know, spiritual ecology, deep house cleaning, to clean those structures out so that I could have a pure, holy, clear, crystal clear relationship with God, without judgment, without like narrative of like, God is love and here to fully support my life and my mission and what I'm here to do. It's not here to shame me or wrong me or punish me. That is just an old, you know, construct. And I really firmly believe that it's letting go of any narrative that we have to walk the penitent path to be in good graces with God. It's just not true. And, you know, all of that, all of those structures can show up in someone's consciousness in all kinds of ways, especially, you know, for me, it showed up in a way of like, I distrusted myself because, you know, I had all these desires to learn, like I had desires to learn witchy things, and I had desires to listen to certain types of music. And then there was this other in the back of my mind when I was young was like, oh, you're gonna go to hell, have this experience. And it was just so not true. But that fear was so overtaking me for a long time in my 20s. I'm speaking about in my 20s. And so I had to really learn to untangle from all of that stuff. And then I became on a wild journey of like exploration spiritually, you know, because I didn't need to live in that box, and just firmly believe that, you know, we're not here to walk a penitent path.
And that's so true. And I think like one of the reasons that I chose this topic to share in the space today is, I watched with my clients, and my ex-partner used to be, well, she still is, she's a fitness coach. And I watched how women punish themselves into losing weight, where it was like, I'm going to be on this journey of transformation because I don't look good. I'm not getting the attention that I want to get to the people I want to be sexually attracted to, on them sexually attracted to me. And the weight of wanting to change your life and have the reason for that be this deep self-loathing it hasn't worked, and doesn't work at all. And even with my own life too, I remember being like, I was like, I'm too nice of a person, so I need to be like confident. And like my reason to build confidence was because I didn't like something about it, where now it was, I'm going to be confident because I deserve to be, because I'm whole and I'm loved and I'm loving, and this is how I show up in the world, versus these stories that we tell ourselves about how we can transform our lives and use this punishment to do that. I was when I was in high school, this was my like super religious space. We lunchtime, when everyone else was eating food, I was leading a prayer meeting with my friends in one of the classrooms in my high school. And this was such a transformative moment for me. I don't know how deep you guys were in religion, but there's a moment after the service and they go, whoever wants to accept the Lord Jesus Christ into their lives, come to the front. And then they do this whole like leading you into prayer. And I remember this and it stuck with me because this was my moment of going, this doesn't feel good. And the person who was inviting everyone said, if you want to avoid hell and if you want to avoid God's punishment, you better come to the front and accept the Lord Jesus Christ into your life. And I remember walking out. I don't like crying in public. We'll deal with that later, Dawn. But I was just like, I was just really like, I don't resonate with the story of accepting someone to be this big part of my life because I'm afraid of being punished. Like, it doesn't feel good for me. And so I walked back in and I said, I think you should accept the Lord Jesus Christ into your life because he loves you. And that is just the reason for it. I mean, I got some looks, people were mad at me, but I that was the moment of this story just not clicking with my spirit, with my soul. And I was just like, if I was God, I wouldn't want anyone wanting a relationship with me because they're afraid of punishment. Right? Like,
I'd love to. Can we take a sociological view on this? I think about this,
yeah.
I think about this a lot. So primarily I work with a lot of codependency.
Mm.
And one of the things that I think about is the social programming, how we got here. And one of the things that I've been really sitting with is how religion has really set us up to be in abusive relationships. So we are in an abusive relationship with our Father, right? We fear him. He will punish us. He will strike us down. Right. And I think about this a lot, and it's in a lot of different structures.
And then
Not
send
only,
us to eternal damnation and fire.
right, for being human.
Yeah.
And so like we're contorting to the father, the patriarchy, the man, the like capitalistic system. Like, again, it's rooted in all the structures. So, right. All of these things have the weaving together to create dehumanizations, to create like, to tell us that confidence, like authentic confidence and authenticity where you're from is bad and wrong, to keep us kind of in the same space of disempowerment, right? Because if you're empowered to be really honest and upfront and share about you, they can't hurt you, or they can't control you, or they can't like make you do things in the world. So anyway, that's one thing. But yeah, there's this bit around, I grew up, my dad was Catholic and my stepmother was Christian. So I have that. My mother, she believed that it's a long story, but she was really in the Iroquois nation's belief system. And my stepfather was atheist. So I had this whole view of like, and the Catholic and Christian stuff really freaked me out as a child, because I was like, if I couldn't understand why I was supposed to be afraid of something that loved me.
Come on now.
Right. Yeah. And so now, I mean, years later, I'm looking at all these abusive relationships that I was in. We're taught to contort to God. We're taught to drink his blood and like eat his flesh. We're taught to like conform and contort and to like not be ourselves, to be loved by him. And that's one of the things that it's like dissolving of those systems and dissolving of that religious practice to really show up as authentic and self-loving. Because if we're self-flagellating, if we're starving ourselves to fit into what the social norm tells us to be so that we can be beautiful, so that we can get love, like it's just a wild setup for failure, right? You have to do something that's difficult to be loved. I don't think that's true.
And that's why they work. Like, they're doing they're doing exactly what they designed for. I don't think like these religious spaces were ever designed to be empowering. They were designed to be controlling. And that's why they say don't ask any questions. Don't like just take it as it is. I have a client actually, yeah, one of my clients was really struggling with her Christian identity. And I was like, yo, you came to the wrong coach, first of all, for this. But she was struggling with this idea of being authentic, and she called it like living in God's will. And I was like, but what is God's will? What does that even mean to you? And as we're having this conversation, and I said to her, do you realize that you're even using language that you never ever questioned because you were asked not to, right? Like you were just asked to just go pray and live in God's will, and this is how your life should look. But within that not being able to question, then you disempowered yourself, because now what's happening is you are living this life of you're happy, you're joyful, things are happening, but you feel bad because you feel like you're not in the will of God, and but you don't know what is the will of God. And we spoke a lot about projection too, like the people who teach us about self-love a lot of the times are not self-loving. So we're learning man, the things I see and I saw, it's like we're learning how to be self-loving from people who don't know how to love themselves. And so what they teach us doesn't make sense, and they teach us from their own projection of who they are. And I was like, a lot of the times when we're sitting in this spaces in church halls, or sometimes even our school teachers, I've had some terrible school teachers, we're learning from people who deeply, deeply do not love, like, or enjoy themselves. And we take those messages on and we apply them in our own lives. And it's their projection of who they are.
Yes. I often think about like, so I'll one of the things that I teach my or say to my clients is like, or my friends or myself, who taught you that?
Yes.
It's like,
who told you that
thing? Like that is the most unloving thing. Like who taught you that?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's, you know, a teacher, or sometimes it's a family member, or sometimes it's an ex-partner, or sometimes it's the program, you know, like sometimes it's the school system. Like who taught you that? And like, where does that even come from? Because when you start to really like look at your authenticity, it really shows up and occurs as being out of integrity, when you're like, I'm a loving person and I'm showing up kindly, but with me I'm harsh and I'm like self-sabotaging and I'm pokey. And when you talk like that, you're like, wait, who taught me how to do that? And what's the purpose there? Is it working? Like sometimes I'm like, is it working? I have a voice in my head that if it uses a specific name and if it has a specific tone, I know which voice that's from. And it's often really like a mess up. So like I have ADHD, so there's like lots of crazy little like weird things that happen in my life. Like I forget my purse, or I forget my jacket, or I forget my keys, or God knows what's happening. Now, people who know me and love me have a ton of patience, have a wild amount of patience for just knowing that whatever might happen, it'll turn into an adventure. At least it'll be a story, you know? Yeah. And if you don't, if you're really rigid and have like strong like needs for things to be like this way, we're going to just kind of struggle a little bit, because there's constant movements. And so if it goes like, oh my God, Trisha, why did you do that? Like, I'm like, oh, that's not really that self-loving, is it?
No.
And where did that come from? Where did the punishment for just my wild humanness and mistakes? Yeah. Right? There's a difference between making a mistake and being a mistake.
Yeah. It's like you read my book. One of the links that I have there, I talk about that. Who told you that? And a lot of the work that I do with myself, like, oh, you guys, the amount of people pleasing that I did in my romantic relationships has been awful. Here's a moment of vulnerability, to a point where when I snap out of the people pleasing, my response is to go, oh, take care of yourself, run, go away, leave, which is also unhealthy. And part of my journey and why I do this work specifically around people pleasing, and I talk about this in the book, is who taught me that to feel safe, I have to people please. To feel love, I have to people please. To be validated, I have to people please. But that safety part of it has been such a huge conversation in with myself. I have my own voices too, Trish, and with those voices of when I say no, the first thing I hear is my uncle's belt buckling, because that's something that I would be punished for. So it takes a while for me to go, I don't want to do that. I'm not that person. I don't want to be that person. And I find that in those moments where I'm afraid to say that, there's a deep level of self abandonment, which then when I get out of this, because people pleasing is just not self loving, right? And a lot of the times, yeah. What did you say, Don?
It is self-abandonment.
It really is. It really, really is. And people are like, you're so extra. I'm like, you have to realize like your authenticity, your dreams, all of it. I'm doing a TED talk on this. So I'm like really, really passionate about it. It is when you step back into your life and you watch how much you gave of yourself in that way, though, that self-compromising, that self-stretching, and how it has landed with you. And now you have to do the work of pedaling back and going, okay, how do I get out of this loop? You have to be able to track to who told me that. And for me, that work was like growing up in a very unsafe environment. A lot of people, it's different stories for some, right? And for me, it's all the things. It is people please so you can be seen, people please so you can feel love, but also people please so you can still feel safe emotionally, mentally, physically. My uncles were very physically abusive, right? And so all of that, when I go back, Trish, to that, who taught me that? Who taught me this was how I stay safe? Who taught me that this is how I feel good, how I feel seen? And then what I do even further, I'm like, who are they? When I look at my uncles' lives, I'm like, these were alcoholics. These are people who continue to struggle to this day. And I refuse to continue to be their victim anymore. And that is, I try to do my best on not to make it like a judgment on them, but it is like watching people's lives and go, I am living out a story that I was told by someone who is really broken. And of course, that's the only story that they could have taught me at that time, because they themselves didn't know anything different.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Yeah, I really work with clients in this way, with untangling deep patterns in consciousness.
Mm.
And this, what you're speaking about is so beautiful, because this has been your spiritual awakening journey, your curriculum. And it takes grit. It takes like deep inner strength and reserves, calling on spirit to where that, yeah. Anyway, it takes really deep, spiritual grit to keep leaning in and taking a deep look, an investigative, honest, neutral look at all the patterns in our life, so that you can, because you're never going to change your curriculum. You're never going to shift breaking those patterns. It's because it's perpetual. It perpetuates in consciousness until you take a new level of consciousness and apply great levels of love to that with consciousness to dissolve it. And that's how you want to go for the gold, and learn to dissolve your curriculum instead of just repeating a cycle or thinking you shifted it some, but it's still slightly there. It's like, yes, you're making progress, but is it real progress? I don't know where the extra conversation is coming from. Do you hear it?
Yeah.
So sorry about that. Yeah, so it's really an opportunity to, I invite our viewers and us to think about, when you're working in consciousness to break a pattern, invite in God, invite in spirit to show you how, so that you can really achieve the next levels of learning and complete it for good, because it's about completing it. And that when you complete something, your whole life changes. And I'm sure you each have had very deep completions. Like for me, I was working on completing this whole narrative of a rejection pattern. And really it came down to, I was rejecting my own light. I was rejecting myself. And that's why I chose that family unit and chose a father that was the story of child abuse, right? I had to fully own it and take full responsibility, not just some responsibility, lay down the victimhood altogether and take 100% responsibility for my choices, my actions, my behaviors, what I made it mean about myself, how I kept perpetuating the loops and the cycles, how I kept choosing abusive partners as I left home, how, it was like I had to really learn to untangle from this rejection narrative, which is self-betrayal, which is self-doubt, which is not listening to self, shaming self, wronging self, self-abandonment, all of that codependency work. Like these are all things I help my clients with. And it's stuff that I struggled with in my own narrative. But in order, like, if you look back at my life is nothing like my childhood, or nothing like my 20s. I've done like quantum leaps to be where I am. And it's taken great spiritual grit to just know that it is changing, and it will always keep changing if you keep bringing your light and your love to it and your devotion. No matter how hard the path is, bring your devotion.
Yes. You got me with that 100% ownership, because I think that a lot of us struggle with owning all of it. And I talk about this a lot too. It is, we will experience such a beautiful transformation when we do, to a point where I think when I was cheated on in my previous relationship, and I lived in that victimhood for months, Dawn. For months, I was like, she cheated.
It's powerful.
Me. And it was like, oh, a shame, right? I wrote a book, The Cheating Stories, in my previous book. Like she hurt me so bad. But I'll tell you this, true healing and empowerment came when I asked myself, how did I participate?
Yeah.
How did I participate? And my best friend has this thing. She's like, you take too much ownership. And I was like, it is the most empowering thing that I do for my life. Because when I ask myself, how did I participate? I'm not her victim anymore. I'm somebody that played a part in my own suffering, quote unquote. I played a part in my own pain. And that story stops being like, oh, shame, self pity party, right? Just sitting in this pity party of being hurt, being betrayed, and both are true. She cheated, it hurt, I felt betrayed. And there's this part that's also true, that there are things that I did in that relationship that allowed that to happen, right? And that is where true growth and healing happens.
I was just going to say, so this is the really powerful paradigm that I'm going to introduce here. So that whole construct you've been learning to break through inside of your psyche, and that, yes, it's deeply painful what you went through, and I acknowledge your spiritual journey there. But what if your curriculum was always there all along, and it becomes the attractor field that draws and attracts the character types that's going to play out a role for your awakening? And and it happens to, and we're all human. So no one's exempt here. We all have it. We all have it. And where you judge parts of yourself or project onto others, it's the unhealed parts of your own story and narrative from some other time past. Who knows when? It could be in this lifetime or not, or it could be a childhood curriculum unfolding in the now moment. And that's why having a coach, having a therapist, that's why having someone to support you and untangling every piece of the narrative so that you can drop it and take it off like an old coat and live your most authentic self. Good job. You're
Yes.
doing the work. Say that. So thank you.
Does anyone else feel like their practice, like my coaching practice is a practice? Like I have to practice what I preach every day.
Yes.
To practice the still when places come up where I'm codependent, or when I want to people please, or when I want to be the victim. Again, the victim is an incredibly powerful place. And it's also in religion, and it's also just literally structured in society everywhere. And I do want to make it clear, like, just because this is a sensitive topic, like, there are people who legitimately have harm caused to them, and that's out of their control. And we're not talking about this kind of victimhood. We're talking about the places where we participate, where I've also been cheated on, and how I like suffocated that relationship and like forced that person to like desperately seek a need that wanted to be met by being seen for being loved, for being seen for being cool, and having like, you know, I mean, there's places where I participated, right? Like, and that is such a powerful place. A powerful place to take full responsibility and ownership for how I show up and the impact that I have on people. So one of the things that I'm really into right now is accountability, and taking accountability for my impact. So, you know, I've had people harm me, and I'm practicing taking accountability for where I've harmed them as well. Like, here's a real example. I have a beautiful lover from the past who I really loved, and this person wasn't like, didn't have the foresight to see that they weren't really that into me. And I felt very hurt by this experience, and I just unloaded on them. And there were places where people had told me, and I had heard, where I needed to walk away and set clearer boundaries long before this person needed to walk away. And, you know, I have this belief that the person who's most conscious and aware of the challenge or the issue, or needing to self-protect, or needing to do the self-love work to like honor my own boundaries and, you know, like have my own, you know, like protection mechanisms. Like, that's what we're doing here. And I want to take accountability for how I showed up and how I didn't show up. Like, it's a really powerful place there of full accountability. Like, hey, I saw this a long time ago. I could have walked away a lot sooner. And I just kind of set us up for wanting you to be someone that you were not. And I did these things, and I chose to do these things, and I chose to speak to you this way, and I put my work on you. And again, it's so incredibly powerful to be the victim, because you can get a lot of people on your side. And to actually address that you are also the perpetrator and the rescuer is wild and freaking bold, and people don't want to do it.
It's tough. It really is. And I think also one of the things that I talk to within myself as well and in the work is some of us are addicted to it. The victimhood is, it gets us attention.
Yeah.
It gets people to look at us and be like, oh wow, this has happened to. It gets us that something about us gets addicted to being seen in that way. And so once you start taking accountability, you lose that attention. Then now you really have to break it. And what it means to take accountability is owning your part in a story. And sometimes it is really hard to own your part in a painful story. So we don't want to do it.
Well, I think we'll be friends, because I'm constantly doing those things, you know, constantly up in integrity and aligning towards that, and restoring my integrity with other people. Sometimes it takes years to do that, to find the right words, to find the, you know, and sometimes it never happens. But that's, you know, that's for me, and that's for you to do for you, and with the people that have capacity to hold the restorations of that. You know, one of the other things is, you know, this people pleasing thing that we talked about, that is also a victimhood bit. It's also in the realm of, people will call themselves empaths. There's a lot of trauma in the world. I've definitely learned how to attune and to empathize with everyone to be safe. It's a really amazing skill.
Yes.
It's a really amazing skill, but it's also, if not done correctly, if not done in my authenticity, then it does turn into a people please, and it is a victimhood, right? Because then I'll be like, oh, well, I'm doing this for this sake, and da 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 da. And I just want to just bring this in. If you, for not just you, but me and everybody's listening, if you are literally giving to get, it's a manipulation.
Oof.
If you are giving in order to just receive something, you're manipulating reality. And so there's this woman that I recently sat with like for 4 days with, and she's an amazing coach. Her name's Francesca. And she said, and I loved this term, a covert contract. You are creating a covert contract with someone. Like if I was here's an example. I'll just like play with Dawn because it's fun as an example. If I have, here's my covert contract in the theory or the example with Dawn. I'm going to cook Dawn dinner every night for the next week so that she'll rub my feet, because I really want her to rub my feet, but I'm not going to tell her. She should just know me. That's what I want. Like,
and that failed every single relationship.
Right. That's codependency. That's people pleasing. And then I get mad because Dawn isn't after this whole, maybe she doesn't even notice. Like her life is so busy that she doesn't notice that I cooked dinner for her all week. And then I'm like, why didn't you rub my feet, Dawn? And she's like, what do you mean? I didn't know you wanted me to. Right. And I think that the taking responsibility piece, just wrapping it back up into this, taking responsibility is also getting really clear about what I want and being bold enough and courageous enough to be like, I want you to rub my feet, because that's going to tell me that you love me, and be okay. Like, here's the other thing, be okay that that's actually might not be an option.
Yeah.
Like Dawn might be like burnt and be like,
yeah.
I love you. And I can't. I can't.
Or Dawn might really just be grossed off by feet.
The honest truth.
I'm just kidding.
I've rubbed a lot of feet in my life. I was a therapist for a long time.
No, it's true. It's just, but being solid in yourself enough to be able to take that no. To be able to be like, I know you still love me, and you can't do this for me. And I'm going to go either self-source it or go to the foot massage spot or find someone else who wants to do that, who's a friend.
Or it's an open conversation at that point to find a way to communicate how to have the need met.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Oh, that was good.
That was really
I'm wondering if you might want to share your tool.
Oh, that's so amazing. Dawn and I spoke about this earlier, and she was like, what's your tool? I was like, my tool? I don't have a PowerPoint presentation. What are you talking about? I think what I want to offer is, so what I wanted to share, I said this earlier, was how do we use self-love as a fuel for change? And a part of that is to ask yourself questions centered around self-love. How I personally do it is, let's take it back to asking for what we need, right? I'm going to ask for what I need because I love myself. I am going to eat healthy foods for no other reason. You guys left me. Oh, this is the part where I'm by myself. So what I want to offer you in this space is asking those questions of what can I do? How can I ground the change that I want to make in my life and have it be grounded in self-love? Like I said earlier, the work that I do for myself and with my clients is whatever it is that I'm trying to do, from working out, eating healthy, speaking out for myself, being more confident. And I'm actually going to focus a lot on the self-advocacy piece, because I'm having a lot of those conversations now, is whatever happens to me, whatever I want to change about myself, I'm going to change it in a way that communicates to myself, not to anyone else. Because if I'm doing it for anyone else, it's not going to work. It is, I'm going to work on changing my life because I love myself. If it is, I'm going to decide to go to the gym every day, it's not because I hate how I look. It's not because I want people to think A, B, C, and D about me, but I'm going to do it because I understand that for me to live a long, healthy, well taken care of life, I have to do this because I love myself. And one of the things that people talk about a lot also is, oh, I'm going to do this when I feel motivated to do it. I think motivation is so, I think it's overused. I'm sorry. And I think for the most part, it doesn't work, because what happens when you don't have motivation? What happens when you are not motivated to do anything? And what do we rely on there is asking yourself, I don't know why I grabbed, I don't know why I grabbed the pen, but ground in asking yourself why. Why do I want to do the things that I want to do? And for a lot of the times, what will sustain that work, what will sustain that change, what will make it keep on going, what will make you keep showing up is I'm going to use self-love to fuel this change that I want to make in my life. I hope that makes sense. And I kind of want to draw in my own life experience as well. I used to, when I came out, it was so heavy, the decision to let myself be seen. And for a lot of that time, I did that work out of being rebellious. I was like, I'm going to rebel against everyone who taught me that I couldn't be myself. I'm going to rebel against anyone who taught me that I don't get to be my authentic self. And that decision to come out had nothing to do with me loving myself. And imagine now me coming out and being like, well, now I'm authentic, and going, I still don't love myself. What is the missing piece? Why am I still hustling for love outside of myself? Why am I still looking for friends to validate me, for partners to validate me? Why am I still outsourcing love? And I realized that even though I had done the work of being authentic, done the work of growing and changing and owning my story and telling my story, and a lot of the times being defensive of that story and doing it out of a place of almost self-righteousness, was because it wasn't something that I did out of self-love. So now what I did was, how do I tell this story of authenticity? How do I tell the story of truth and love, and have that authenticity be grounded in self-love? And a lot of the times we tend to be so negative. There's voices of self-loathing, negative self-talk. We think, if I'm going to get anything done, if I'm going to step out of this comfort zone, whatever change it is that I want to do, like writing a book. Guys, I sat with a book that was 8 chapters done on my laptop for over 4 years, because I was dealing with deep-seated issues of insecurity. Because I was writing a book that I wanted people to be like, yo, Kanye wrote a book. And it only changed when I went, what's my why for doing this? What do I want to communicate? And now it's done and it's out there. It's like, whatever thing that you want to produce, have it be centered in you loving yourself. Also, I'm big on service, right? It's like, who am I serving by this? Who am I serving by telling my story? Who am I serving by showing up the way that I do in the world? And when I use self-love as all of that, as an anchor that ties all of that together, I begin to see the most expensive and start living the most authentic and confident and empowered life. I think that's all I'm going to share right now. Is that okay? Can you all come back?
Yes.
Okay, I have to say, I was like, where did they just go?
Sorry, it's a normal protocol to like
No, that's okay.
share authentically. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I'm gonna unmute you, Trish. That way you can speak.
Yeah. What I loved about your tool and your inquiry, like I love the self-inquiry bits, and I love when we get to actually ask ourselves the questions that sometimes people aren't courageous enough to ask us. Like, this is why my relationship with Dawn is so great. And some of the relationships that I'm having now is like, I trust these people to be like, to check me. Hey, you're saying one thing and you're doing another thing. What's that? And to actually cultivate the skill of doing that for yourself is incredibly important. And that is a really self-loving action. Doing that without the like self-flagellation, without the punishment, but with self-compassion, with the honesty and the kindness of moving forward. And I love when you're like, what's my why? And what really resonated and brought up for me in that whole conversation is sometimes like we live in a productivity culture where we're taught to like abandon ourselves, to like contort and to conform to get our needs met, right? Like financially or whatever. And that we're not actually taught to rest. And oftentimes, this is just my thing. I don't know if anyone else has this experience, but most of the time when I'm like, I don't want to do that, it's because my body and my brain are tired and I need other things to nourish it. I need rest or play, or I need connection, or I need to actually stop pushing so hard, which is often a self-abandonment. When I push through the like, oh, I need to do this. When I push through that, yes, there's deadlines and things, of course, but whatever, like those are arbitrary. But when I really like, what do I really want and need right now? What am I, maybe my body, maybe I just need, so the Gen Z calls laying in bed all day bed rotting. They're crazy. I love them. And I'm like, I just call that awesome. You know, you get to like lay in bed all day and rest and like call your friends and like
Without being sick.
It's rest. Sometimes
Without being sick to have to do it.
Without pushing yourself to be sick to do it. Yeah. And it's oftentimes that's what that brought up. Your tool brought up for me is like the reminder to give myself permission to rest without, you know, like, what is my why here? Why am I pushing so hard? What's going on? Do I need that? I also have one other question, totally unrelated. What's your cat's name?
Oh, this is my friend's cat, and her name is Gemma because she's a Gemini.
Oh,
Yeah. She is one too. She's just like, I think you spoke about something that really landed with me, and it was like when you push too hard, it's like the amount to which we stretch our capacity a lot of the times, and we end up feeling resentful, whether we resent our family, our partners, we resent the world, the government, whatever it is that's making us stretch past our capacity, and asking those questions of why am I doing this? Why am I not resting right now? Kind of brings us up to, this is my capacity, this is what I can contain, and I understand that if I push further than what I can contain, then I'm emotionally self-harming.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you didn't catch that, go back and listen to that part. Really, though, I mean, I'm going to say this again. All of this self-love, all the tools that we've shared over the last 4 years, these are practices, right? You know, meditation is a practice. You don't just like learn how to meditate and then you're like perfect at it. Like there are people who spend their lives meditating in caves in total darkness because it's a practice that you have to keep coming back to. And when you keep coming back to the practice of self-inquiry, of self-compassion, of self-love, of responsibility, of asking yourself kindly those hard questions, like it's an eternal practice. Like us coaches need coaches and therapists. We need people to talk to because that's how humans are, community based. I mean, I don't know if you've ever gotten into this thought, but I'm like, oh, I can do it alone. I cannot do it alone. Like that's a great lie in the world of individuality, but it's actually so untrue. I don't do anything alone, like ever. I go to the store, I see people. I need people to help with this. I'm constantly connected to people, regardless of whether my brain thinks that I'm doing it alone or not.
Mm-hmm.
I
need
That's
Dawn.
True. Yeah. I think we all need each other. I think like the world will be so healthier if we recognize just how much we need each other and how similar we are, and like in all the ways, in all the ways. I remember I lived in Malaysia for a year, and I was like immersed in Islam and the Muslim culture, and I was like, we think it's so different, but when you really study and when you learn and when you look and you see, it's the same stuff. And the beauty of being somewhere where you were told you don't belong is that you get to connect in those ways, and you're like, we're just here having this human experience, and part of it is the mistakes that we make. It is the ways in which we recenter and we return to self and return to each other in those moments. um, what you said is that like we still, like even with coaches, I told you that I was in Mexico, I was on a motorbike and I made a mistake on the bike, and my reaction was to, in my head, was to yell at myself. And then I literally said out loud, I went, you don't speak to yourself that way.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Yes. And as for someone who practices consciously how to not have this negative self-talk, it's still a daily practice. I still have moments where I have to call myself into order, like, hey, no, we're not going to be doing that today. And
Mhm.
yeah, so I totally agree with that. It's
It
every
is a
day.
practice. It is every day.
Yeah.
You know, our
Yeah.
spirituality is a practice.
Mm.
It is. It's like it's strengthening the muscle of being with the divine,
Mm.
through it all, through all our humaning, through all the things that surface, that it's not
Mm.
just when we're sitting at our altar, it's not just when we're having a prayerful moment, it's when
Mm.
you're having a triggered moment, it's when you're having a crunchy conversation, it's
Mm.
when you get 10 red lights in a row, it's when God is there too in those moments. And it's like seeing past the duality and letting go of the whole narrative of good, bad, right, and wrong. It's like learning to dissolve the need to relate from the ego altogether, and just allow yourself to see that God is blessing in everything. Everything is, it's an illusion to believe there's anything separate from ourself. It's God. It's all God. Always has been, always will be. That's how it is. And whatever you want to call the name of God, I don't see it as a man in the sky. I see it as your eyeballs, my eyeballs, Trisha's eye. We're all sharing in this beautiful experience and loving. We're existing in the heart of God. It's not the other way around. And when you really start to see your life through that way, every conversation you have is talking to God. Every person, every way you talk to yourself, it's all, you're speaking to God. It's a really beautiful thing to think of life in those terms, because it shifts your gratitude exponentially to an upward momentum of, wow, like, thank you for every part of this. Life is so precious, even the hardest parts. Thank you for this curriculum. Thank you for the learning. Thank you for the opportunity in this. And you really
Mm.
shift your whole, we like to call it in spiritual psychology, you know, leaning into a learning orientation in life, instead of
Mm.
seeing it as, it's happening to me, it's happening for me.
Mm.
It's happening for my awakening. It's happening for me. So
Mm.
every moment that's coming my way has my life. Even if you're
Mm.
caught off guard, or it's awkward or uncomfortable or whatever it may be, because the truth is, it's uncomfortableness is always going to be in our human experience. It's our growth edge exists there. Yeah. So
I kind of want to leave with this story. Just hopping onto that, like whatever happens to you happens for you. I was doing this meditation a few months ago, and part of it was like, what are you like? Just tell the universe what you're grateful for. And without me even thinking about it, I was like, I'm grateful for my stepfather. And when like, it broke me. I was like, do I mean it? Am I? Because he was not the kindest of men. And for me to sit there in meditation and be grateful for someone who caused me so much pain and agony, and who I remember there were times where I was like, I will never forgive him, ever. And I would be like, and I go to bed and sleep at night very peacefully, knowing that I will never forgive him. But here I am in this moment of gratitude, being like, without that man, I would not be sitting here and having this conversation with you. Without him, I wouldn't have seen the world in the ways that I have. It was his cruelty, part of it, that created this person who gets to be here and present in the world in the ways that I am now. And so I am grateful and thank you. It was hard. I'm not saying it was easy. And to be in that space of feeling gratitude for a story that I used so comfortably as a reason to be a victim was life-changing at most, really.
Powerful. Nothing is worth holding yourself against love.
Mm-mm.
Nothing is worth it.
Mm-mm.
And I mean, yeah, it's a justified position. The ego will always stand justified.
Mm.
You know, if you find yourself in a position of strong positionality inside yourself, then you know that's the ego, and it can really reside there in a lot of hurt, and you know that that's your spiritual work. When hurt is surfacing, it's your place to apply love.
Mm.
Your place to bring love to where there is discord, disharmony, whatever the material is inside your consciousness. It's happening for a reason, because the karma exists there. The unresolved material in your consciousness is there, and that's where and why it's surfacing. But it's so beautiful that you can really relinquish it, keep relinquishing, keep dissolving, keep bringing love to the places inside that hurt. And that is how you heal deeply. That is how you heal, is bring love to the part inside that's aching for attention, for your perception to shift. And what are the misbeliefs, misidentifications, misunderstandings?
Beautiful.
Misunderstandings. What are the misunderstandings that are residing there that you can cleanse your lens of perception to hold it differently? And then it shifts it completely in your consciousness, and shifts your relationship, shifts your position of how you show up. And this is how patterns shift for good, is through what I'm sharing. And so this is how I work with clients. This is what I do to help you hone in and get clear. And like, really, I have a very precise precision skill of being able to help you specifically connect the dots and see where it started and how it began and where it began with. And God works really deeply through me in that way. I've developed over my lifetimes. And it's a really powerful experience to work with someone and have big moments of like, oh my gosh, that one moment started this whole narrative, and that's been haunting me for years. And like, to have someone take all that off and just be like, whoa, my whole life has changed, is a gift. It's a gift.
It is.
How do we find more about your works?
My works. I have some links on here. I'm a vintage millennial that likes Instagram, so I'm just gonna put
I like vintage. I like that.
Yeah. I got it from this stand-up comedian. She's like, I'm a vintage millennial. I was like, me too.
It's better than elder.
No, I don't like elder.
Wait, what's called? Not an elder millennial. It's a...
I like vintage.
What?
Fine wine. I like vintage.
Vintage, yeah. So good.
Yeah.
Look at
that. And that's my Instagram. You'll find everything on there. You'll find my work, my teaching, my process, all this stuff.
I've put all your links in the chat for those interested. Go catch Coach Kayani.
Kanye.
Kanye. Because it's like, I'm reading the,
Yeah.
excuse me, forgive me for
No, you're
saying
fine.
yeah, so go catch her. Her work is brilliant. She's got so much to share, just this beautiful heart of love, heart of gold. And what is your, like, maybe type your Instagram in the private chat so I can post it.
Okay.
Oh wait, here it is. Got it.
Yeah,
It was
I
there.
posted you the link.
Okay, perfect.
No, I did that wrong. Just use the link.
Okay, got it.
Beautiful. I have so many questions for both of you, and I'm going to be finding your Instagrams, and hopefully we can do this another time. This is beautiful.
I've had such a good time. Thank you
Me
so
Yeah,
too.
me
Thank you so
too.
much.
Ah, you're so welcome. I'll see you guys.
Yeah, thank you for
Appreciate
your
your
time, your expertise, and
Yeah.
your just really heart-centered vulnerability in your sharing.
Oh, thank you.
Mhm.
You too.
Yeah, so grateful for your presence today on the show, and I really feel your heart in your work. Really feel how much you've grown and shifted in your consciousness, and how the deep spiritual desire to share that knowledge is so present, and I can really feel you being led by spirit to do that, and it feels so good. It's like I celebrate your work in the
You're
world.
gonna make me cry. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll see you guys. I'm gonna run
Yeah.
out, but thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good day.
Yeah.
I'd like to give a big shout out to Dawn Light and Connie for showing up in such a sweet way today, as well as Love Coach Academy, Scott Katamas, Global Peace Tribe for sharing us out, for being our muse and our coaches and teachers in the world. Thank you to Roy and Russell for making this show possible. KPFZ 88.1 out of Lakeport for running us out on radio, and all of you for showing up every day, every Thursday, to get more self-love and to spread the love in the world. We'll see you same time, same place next week.
Love you.